Welcome to the Sprengeri Gallery, and also welcome to Cordelia Williams' show, Shadows and a Fairytale. Really sort of excited about what's happening here in that this is the first time that a literary product has joined with a visual product all at the same time. And I hope you all have a chance to look at the book there. It is amazing. Please use the gloves, by the way. Cordelia, of course, is a Charlotte artist who's been around the world a couple times, okay? And is well known with Light Factory, and the Mint Museum, I think, has a piece or two. And certainly you are an artist of note, both as an artist, photographer, and I'm going to say writer, okay? So anyway, without further ado, I'd like you to give a round of applause for Cordelia Williams, okay?
Well, thank you all for coming. I'm very honored that you're all here. And this show is from work that I did many years ago, and Michael had picked from my website, he had picked the photograms, which are these pieces here that are the flowers. And I've only ever shown a couple of them here and there. So we combined this with my fairy tale, which I wrote kind of at the same time, although I'm still doing photograms when I have a chance. But I used to do them when I was a teacher, and when I was on my way to the darkroom, I would pick a flower from my garden and take it, and I would test the chemicals by making a photogram of the flower. So for people who may not know how that works, is I put the sensitive photography paper down, and then I put the flower on top of it, and then turned on the enlarger light, and the light shines through the flower and shows its insides. This bleeding heart, which is one of my favorites, and it's Valentine's weekend. It was the actual bleeding heart piece that I put in the negative carrier and shine the light for it. So all the tissues of the heart are in it, and I like it a lot. So the shadows is something that I love photography, and I could spend weeks telling you all I love about it, but I love the reality of it, and the strange reality, and the many realities, and the layers of realities, and I love the positive and negative, and I like to play with positive and negative quite a bit. And so the flowers show their insides, which is their negative side, and negative and positive get all mixed up in one's mind, but good and evil isn't part of it. It's just negative and positive. So negatives are they represent parts of us that we don't see, or parts of the flowers in this case that we don't see. So that's how they're made. And then I blew them up, and they're computer prints, but so that's how they were done. And at the same time, I wrote this fairy tale over here, and it took many years to write. Well, I didn't start with the writing. I started with pictures, and I photographed my little girl, who is now grown up, and she's standing over there. Her name is Caitlin, and so she was part of this, a big part. It was sort of a performance piece on her part, and a photography part on my part. And the work, the fairy tale itself is about being a single mother, and it's about mothers and daughters, and it's about fairy tales in the form that we know them, as a adventure with a villain or an obstacle to overcome, and then a happy conclusion. So this being about mothers and daughters, it's very autobiographical, even though it's a fairy tale and it's not completely true, but it is kind of true. And My mother died when I was 17 years old, and my father had died when I was 9. So I was, alone in my young adulthood. And I think I identify with the fairy cat, who in the book is a messenger between the daughter and the mother, who is trapped in the predatory spider's web. So the story of the fairy tale, and I hope you can all see it over there, eventually today. It starts off with my daughter being a happy little girl. This is Camilla's a happy little girl. And then the whole thing is not up here because it's a very long story. But she and her friend, her mother is a fairy and her father is a mortal man who died tragically when she was a baby. So my mother is raising 2 children, and those are the 2 children. They're my children in the little strip there. So Caitlin's on the top. Her name is Camilla in the book. And then my children, and then so the little pieces are from the fairy tale in general. So she and her friends were playing on Halloween, and they were not supposed to go into the fairy world, but they got carried away, and they decided to go into the fairy world. And it was harvest moon, and it was dangerous in the fairy world because the villain, he's right here, he's called the predatory spider, and he has this really big web in the sky, and he decorates it with wings and really pretty wings of creatures he's eaten. And he's very vain about the web and himself, but he really wants to capture a fairy and pull her wings off and put them in his web. That's one of his big goals in life. So when Camilla and her friend went into the fairy world, he saw them and he wanted to capture them. But then the fairy cat came and told the mother that they had gone there, and she went after them. So she gets into an argument with the predatory spider, and accidentally she makes a slip of tongue or whatever, and he captures her. So then the fairy cat comes back and tells the daughter, and the daughter has to go rescue. The daughter sets off to rescue the mother, and the fairy cat was with her. So they went to the fairy king and queen, who are also not pictured here, but the fairy king and queen made the daughter a leaf boat, and that's it on top of the predatory spider. And she was to sail down the river of hope, and when she came to the end, she would have the wisdom to know what to do to rescue her mother. And so it's a long trip. She plays with friends on Fairy Island, and they all give her strength and wisdom, and the fairy cat flies back and forth between the mother and the daughter. And then finally she gets to the ocean, and a hurricane, and her mind is made up, her determination. Oh, she fights with the predatory spider on the way, and he says things to her like, "Who do you think you are? And you're mine. You can't get away from me ever." And here she's saying, "I'm a fairy of undisclosed powers." And that's when all the determination comes forth, and all the forces of the universe are united with her, and a hurricane blows up. Oh, on the trip, I have to tell you about this. She sees different people on the trip, and this is her mother. She sees a vision of her mother who says, "Brave girl, I will help you." And the grandmother says, "Smart girl, you will figure out a way." And so the hurricane, this is the hurricane blows her to the spider web, and the hurricane also has blown apart the spider web some, and then she and the fairy cat tear up the spider web, and they rescue her mother, and the predatory spider is just left to, he says he repents, but he probably didn't. And then that's the story. That's the story with the fairy tale. So thanks. That's it. Any I'll answer any question. Thank you. Does anybody want to ask me anything?
I do. Cordelia, did the story come first or the pictures?
The pictures came way before the story. I wrote the story around the pictures, which is not the usual way. But I mean, I didn't have all the pictures by the time I thought about the story, but it was 13 years of photography of my daughter. And she was always such a great model and participant.
Of course. The question is, how much did you pay her for modeling?
Room and board and love. But I like the fairy tale. In so many Western fairy tales, the mothers are antagonistic toward each other, and this one is different.
I don't really have a question. I just want to say that this is a beautiful selection
Thank
of the
you.
work, and I think that photogrammed flowers really go well with the
I
fairy
know.
tale. It's,
Michael and I put it together, and we had fun.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful show.
Thank you. I really like it.
Cordelia, I can't remember how many volumes of the book were made.
Well, there were 50 copies. I got a grant from the North Carolina Arts Council in 1992 to publish the book. So I had 50 copies, and there's one, and I hope you will read it. It's a long story, but.
Where's the other 49?
Some of them, well, there's one available for the public at the Atkins Library at UNCC. So they have a special library where you can look at rare books, and it's in that rare book collection, which is open to the public. And I forget who has them. I really forget. Mostly friends, but some museums.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Fairy cat.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Well, has no fear.
It's a brave fairy cat. And it was nice to be thinking about this work, so hard, because I hadn't thought, I had done it and I knew what I had done, but it's been a long time since I thought about it very deeply. And then I thought this week I was thinking that I was probably identify the most with the fairy cat, because it's a girl cat, I'm sorry. She goes back and forth between the mother and the daughter. And the way I was working out being a daughter, being a mother, being part of the circle of life. And the fairy cat comes back and forth and says things.
How did you get Caitlin and Camilla to fly?
I
just can do that.
Yeah. She could always do that, yeah.
Cordelia, your photography, I know you do hand illustration. Is it pencils or paints, or how do you choose your?
It's usually paint. So everything in here started as a black and white photograph that I printed by hand in the darkroom. And then most of the ones from the fairy tale, they all have been painted, and then they're reproduced digitally for this show. And well, I have some reproduced digitally anyway, but yes.
I might add to that, if one piece is sold, I'm assuming we can make a reprint for another
Yeah.
piece. So don't be shy if you like a piece that's already been sold. So, which is a hint. Also, I want to add, don't forget these small little, she's hand painted over photographs here. I'm using the wrong word, I know, archival print.
Well,
And so, and they're beautiful. And just as a comment from my end of it, as a painter, not only are these kind of beautiful color-wise, but so are these other pieces, especially those of Camila in her boat. I think are just extraordinary in terms of their color.
It's not a question, but a comment. So I grew up with some of these pictures in our house, and when I started doing photography in high school, I remember asking how you got the color. Asked my mom and dad like how you got the color in the pictures, and they said that you painted over it, and like that really inspired me to try that. I use colored pencils; it looked like crap. But I just wanted to let you know that like your work and your artisticness like really inspired me in my photography and growing up. So
oh, thank you, Rachel. Thank you.
Similarly to you, I saw Cordelia's work before I ever met Cordelia, and I met this person here before I ever met Cordelia, but also a lover of photography. The first time I ever saw her work, I was like, this must be the most magical person I've seen. Yes.
Thanks, Cindy.
She is. I don't know. And then I had the privilege of knowing Cordelia, and she really does meet those magical expectations. and I think it's been, for me and people my age who are into art, has been a true representation of the love and support of art that we need in Charlotte.
Thank you, Cindy. That's so sweet.
Be sure to sign the guest book. A little spiel here. We just found out about 2 weeks ago they're going to be selling our building, which means the gallery, all the artists in here are going to be out of here most likely. We've got our fingers crossed that there's a groundswell of information, but you know how that is with City Hall. So anyway, be sure to sign the guest book. That gives us more numbers to use as fodder for our presence and hopefully sustained presence here. So please do that. And if you have any, $1 million or $2 that you want, we can use it, I guarantee. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for coming, and thank Cordelia for sharing her work.
Thank you,
This way,
Michael.
right?